Perfect. And we're going to let it run for about a minute or so. And the next session that we have coming up is selling localization within your own company, which is going to be a panel discussion actually, run by Kathrin Bussmann. So we'll see that in one brief moment. All right, and we have Kathrin joining us now. Hello,
Hi,
Kathrin.
Brian.
How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. I just
Excellent.
realized I looked you up on LinkedIn, and it seems we're compatriots. So it's nice to have another Canadian on the on the look from home today.
Absolutely. Well, we're everywhere. We do. We sneak in.
We are.
And pop up. So happy to have another Canuck on the screen with me. It's great.
I'm very excited to be doing this today. So thanks for having me.
No, thank you. And I appreciate the fact that you're going to moderate this panel. We've obviously got wonderful guests here that are going to help. The panelists are very knowledgeable. And I've looked up each and every one of them on LinkedIn as well and done my background checks on them. They look fantastic. So I'm really, interested in hearing all the perspectives. I think we've all been victim of, our clients or our clients' colleagues or even our colleagues not necessarily, understanding the need for localization. It always seems to be that necessary evil that comes after the fact. So with that, I'll let you introduce your panelists and I'll be back towards the end and we can probably go through some Q&A.
Fantastic. Sounds
Thanks,
good.
Everyone.
All right, well, thanks for tuning in. I'm really honored to be moderating this panel discussion today. My name is Kathrin Bussmann. I'm the head of Verbaccino. Verbaccino is actually not a localization company at all. It's a strategic marketing consultancy that focuses on global content strategy. And so I like to help digital first companies build their global brands. But I'm also the creator and host of the Worldly Marketer podcast. And some of you might already be familiar with it. It's a weekly interview style show where I cover all aspects of global marketing issues, and included in that, from my perspective, is localization. My background is in linguistics originally and communication studies. I'm based in Toronto. And this topic today of selling localization within your own company is actually a really interesting one to me. I like to always focus on the client side of localization because that's who I work with. So today, we hear this a lot. Localization teams, often work in relative obscurity, unfortunately, within their company, especially larger companies. And so how can a client-side localization manager, sell localization within their own company and make sure that it becomes a fully integrated part of the work process there? So to discuss this, I've got three excellent and highly experienced in-house localization managers. First, I'd like to introduce Hristina Racheva. She is the head of localization at Skyscanner. Of course, most of you will be familiar with Skyscanner. It's a UK-based travel tech company. It's been around since 2003, and Hristina has actually been there since 2016. She is actually based in Barcelona. Next, we have Julien Bertaud, who is a localization manager at Roblox. Roblox is a tech company that's based in San Mateo, California, and it has been around since 2006. It's actually an online platform that empowers a global community of about 100 million monthly users to play, imagine, and create together. So it's basically a gaming platform for kids, if I understand correctly. So Julien can correct me on that. Julien has been with Roblox since 2018, and he's in the San Francisco Bay Area. Last but not least, we have Semir Mehadzic, localization product manager for continuous localization systems at Infobip. And some of you might have just caught his presentation just a little while ago. I know I did, and it was super interesting. It's a little, I'm not sure I'm the best person to explain what Infobip does, but it's an IT company based in London, and it focuses on communication platforms with a wide range of messaging channels and tools. I believe the headquarters is in London, and the company's been around since 2006. Semir has been there since 2016, and he's actually joining us, I believe, from Sarajevo. So I'd like to start off by asking each of my panelists to kind of describe what their localization team at their company looks like. How big is it? how many languages do you support? You know, all of these companies that I've mentioned are sort of on the maturity scale, they're kind of along the way to becoming very mature. So it'd be interesting to hear how many languages you support, and how does your team currently interact with other teams at the company? You know, for instance, the engineering team, product team, marketing, sales, etc. So I'd like to start with Hristina. Maybe you can start us off and just explain, tell us about your team and what you do and how you do it at Skyscanner.
Sure, thanks Kathrin for the introduction. So yeah, we have 35 languages, and we do the usual content types, mainly products, our website and app, all the marketing communication with customer satisfaction, help center content, and as a team, I think all of us in the localization teams is kind of a continuous journey. So for us as a team, that has definitely been one. And luckily in the last year and a half, we've seen our team really grow in terms of numbers of people on the team, but also, of course, with the increase of the team size, we also have done amazing things in the last year and a half. So now we have the interesting thing, and I guess the being lucky in that case, is we have a localization side of the team, localization managers and project managers, and we have almost size a team of internationalization engineers. So it's really amazing to have that technical support. So we have 7 engineers and we are 8 in total on the localization side. We work very closely together. The engineers help us in terms of building tooling, automation, optimization of processes. They also help the internal stakeholders, developers mainly, enabling them and doing things better and faster. And on the localization side, so how do we work with the organization? I guess just like any other localization team, we are this kind of horizontally almost access to the organization, because we interact with pretty much all disciplines at different levels. One thing that we did recently, we have a dedicated, for example, almost a small part of the team on marketing collaboration. So we've identified a need maybe to work closer with them. So we focused a bit of dedicated to people there on that side. And then the other kind of type of interaction is just the daily enablement and support of the stakeholders that we work with. So that's briefly about us. You're on mute, Kathrin. The usual no.
Sorry, rookie mistake, sorry. No, I was saying, I know you're going to have lots to say on this topic, Hristina, because you actually gave a really excellent presentation. One of my favorites actually at the recent Loc Worldwide 42 Loc World conference, which with a colleague of yours about how to get buy-in from the C-suite essentially at your company and raise the profile of the localization team. So I'm so glad you're on this panel today. I'm going to move on to Julien. Julien, perhaps you can tell us a bit about your team, how big it is, which how many languages you're kind of supporting, and how you're working with the rest of the company right now. For good or ill, but I'm sure there's always room for improvement. But tell us a little bit about the situation at Roblox.
Sure. So again, thank you for the introduction, Kathrin, and for putting all this together. But yeah, I mean, I think at Roblox, and it's really similar to what Hristina talked about at a company. I mean, we have a localization side, which I would call like the core localization team. Which is localization management and our linguists. We actually have a full team of linguists in-house to support our localization effort. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we actually have some internationalization engineering. We have some business development as well for international. That's already part of Roblox. And the way that the localization team works on this is, again, just like Hristina, I would say like the horizontal that goes across all vertical is the localization team. So yeah, so we are very involved with all matters of content that gets published, whether it's on our product side, whether it's talking with engineering when we start drafting new features, whether it's talking with design when we talk about revamping some UI or launching, like the development of new features. So the localization team is really involved into this, like, I would say, like, ahead of the development cycle, so that we don't run into issues at the later point, which is nice when it works. It's not, I would say, it doesn't always work that way, but that's the intention that we have. But yeah, so really that's how we interact with all the teams at Roblox. Again, is that way. The addition that we have, though, is for a localization perspective, which is really interesting for our team at Roblox on the localization core, is that we also work with our business development team. What I mean by that is just that we leverage our resources in-house and the knowledge of the country that they grew up in to understand the type of partnership we should do and how we should interact with a certain market, which I think brings a little a new skill set to some of our localization people in our team. And yeah, in a nutshell, that's the way that we interact within Roblox. In terms of languages that we support, we're actually pretty new in the localization world at Roblox. Like you mentioned, we've been around for a while, but we did our first language release about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and we now currently support 8 languages on our way for more.
Very cool. Well, Semir, what can you tell us about the team that you work with, that you lead at Infobip? I mean, you are specifically focused on continuous localization, but perhaps there are other applications for localization. You know, I'm sure the marketing department needs some localization done too, and other areas of the company. Tell me about your team and the languages you support and how you are integrated within the company currently.
Yeah, you actually nailed it in the introduction. I'm handling this continuous localization pipeline, and I've only recently taken over it this summer. Actually, I was helping from the last year company redesign the process, as I've explained in the previous presentation. But I've actually been running this part only from this summer officially. So since I've taken over, I cannot really tell about the localization strategy before me, but I know that we did things internally and we really want to revamp this. We supported 20 languages and we are now reconsidering whether they all need to be supported, but if they are supported, they should be properly supported. You know, it's kind of weeding out whatever is a possible waste. Since I've taken over, we're analyzing this and we're about to adjust to what data tells us. At this moment, from the previous setup, we kept our internationalization team, actually an invaluable asset. There were 3 of them, now there are 5 actually. So they are there to build this continuous localization pipeline, and I'm there as the product manager to actually set up this software. But because of my localization industry experience, I'm also acting literally as a localization manager, doing the analysis of which language, which locales should be supported as such. So at this moment, it's 5 of us, and we are reluctant to add traditional roles to the process immediately. We will build upon this and see where it leads, because it's continuous localization, and maybe the roles will also be different. So I'm gonna hold the gate for a while and then see actually where we need most help. Of course, as previous speaker said, we collaborate intensively with the other departments. They're actually our clients, and that's how we have to view it. And they have, there's many of them: marketing, product marketing, sales, of course, and product. And their needs matter, but they differ greatly based also for the types of content, the way they deliver it, the frequency, and that kind of stuff. So we have to talk a lot to them, really learn about the needs, and really sell localization to them, which is actually the point of this panel today.
Mm-hmm. Well, so we're talking about, you know, how to sell localization within your company. I'd like to get a sense of, from each one of you, to what extent do you find that you still have to sell localization? Is it still an uphill battle? I know Hristina talked about her experience at Skyscanner at her Loc-World session, and it was really interesting, actually. Hristina, maybe you can give us a recap of how you went about trying to get more buy-in, more recognition, first of all, and then buy-in from upper management at Skyscanner for the localization team and what you were trying to do, and trying to get them to appreciate, you know, how crucial your role is for the overall success of the company, really, and its global growth.
Yeah, and I was just actually listening, thinking now as everyone was speaking, and realized all of us here on this panel, we obviously have done an amazing job of selling our teams and our services, because we all have internationalization teams, for example, which it's really, you know, maybe some of our listeners might get the impression that this is the default in our industry and localization teams, but it's really rare to have an engineer, and let alone a whole team. So I guess it speaks for, you know, for our efforts that we have done that work to get that. And a bit on the selling, I was just also thinking, you know, there's so many different levels, I think, that we do this kind of selling and this buy-in, because there is, you know, the leadership where, say, what we did was just getting that, or raising that awareness that we need physically more people, a bigger team to really do everything that needs to be done and like what we want to achieve. So there is that of just, you know, getting that permission to hire more. So that's on a leadership level, but then there is on all the different levels in terms of stakeholders that we work with. And again, depending on their discipline, depending on their level, like be that maybe on a day-to-day basis where we work maybe with developers, but then also with engineering leaders and managers. Again, will be different type of selling or buying or support. And again, there's like so many formal and informal ways to do that. And I'm just thinking of a bit more of those informal, because it's kind of doing it a bit more in a natural way, where you subtly get into people's skin, like, for example, talking at the coffee machine or at drinks or a dinner, and kind of always finding a way to talk about localization. And then you suddenly become this person that is the localization expert. And it's much easier for, you know, for people to come and talk to you versus in official way. I just remember, like, recently I was out for dinner with some of the team here in Barcelona, not just the localization team, the engineering team, and we started talking about the errors in the menu. And of course, you know, they were joking, because of course the localization lead would talk always about languages and translation, and someone didn't even know I was leading localization, but they started talking to me about the errors in the Russian translation. So, you know, they never probably kind of find it difficult or wouldn't bother to raise those, but by having these interactions, that's even that informal level is also helpful.
So it starts with just, you know, socializing with other people in the company and getting to know them, you know, one-on-one, and making sure they know what your role is at the company, so that when they do have a localization related problem, they feel comfortable reaching out to you directly, instead of, you know, asking around. So who you know, who does this?
That's like this kind of informal, right? Because we also, something that we did recently as our department, we have those kind of weekly sessions as a department, and from time to time we have those quizzes and game time. So I recently did one on languages. So again, just trying to kind of pass your agenda in a very subtle and fun way. So just getting that awareness.
So networking with your colleagues. Julien, what would you add to that? Have you found that you're still having to justify the you know, your localization budget basically, and convince upper management that this needs to be done, or are you kind of past that and sort of now just kind of educating people on how you do what you do?
No, I don't think I'll ever be past it, to be honest, at any point in the future either. Yeah, so, you know, I think it's the life, being in localization, where there's always some people that don't really understand. I would say it's not that they don't understand what we do, but it's also like understanding what are the benefits from it is another issue. And I think there's more of a disconnect between the people that are in the industry and the people that are, like, I would say that we serve directly. But some of the few things, like, and again, Hristina has been spot on so far. And yeah, like the day-to-day networking is really important for like all the people that you will interact with, and getting the information that you will need to be able to perform your job as a localization PM or localization manager or whatnot, like on a daily basis. What I would like to add is a couple of things. The first is that when you want to sell yourself, sell your team, sell, again, like validate your budget to C-suite level or execs in your company, one very important thing to do, and it's true for localization, I think it's true for everything nowadays, is, again, back up what you're saying with data, right? When you want to sell localization and you want to say, I need to hire somebody for this locale, or we want to support this locale in the future, like, how do you do this? Is that you need to prove the value of adding that locale, on adding that person to your team. And so at Roblox, we have a certain like way of doing this. So we look at like, but there's so much data, and you need to find what relates to the people in your company, what will sell you. Finding those at that point is really important, and really is a key to success, for me, at least in my opinion, in being able to get what you want. And the other thing I wanted to add, and it starts from like way before you even start your position, and something that I've been doing the last few roles that I had, is when you do interview for the role that you want, being in localization, try to get a sense as to how important the international growth is for that company that you're trying to work for. Because some company will try to hire some people in localization, but again, not really understanding what it entails to and what needs to be done to be successful in localization. So it is also part of your role to ensure that they do understand and that it's aligned with what you are looking for and what you believe is the right way to do it. I mean, you won't get all the answers through an interview process, but you should get a clear idea of whether or not you will be able to get the backup and all the support you need from your company even.
Yeah. And I guess depending on who you're approaching, you need to present the right kind of data. You have to first understand what do they care about? Like, what kind of data do they care about? And depending on who you're talking to, it's going to be different kinds of data, right?
That's exactly right. I mean, we have, at Roblox, like any other company, we have so many stakeholders. And again, it's trying to validate, like, do we need somebody for like more on the moderation side? Do we need somebody to actually perform translation? Do we need somebody to talk with our developers? Like, what do we need and how does it fit in? How do we present this to? Yeah, so that's exactly right. It's finding the correct data for the correct person. It's the data point for the correct person. It's like, yeah, that's you need to do this mapping for everyone to make sure that you get heard and you get understood, really.
That's the first rule of sales and marketing, right? Know your audience.
Know
correct. Your target audience. Semir, what would you? Sorry. Yeah, Semir, what would you add to that? Tell me about the situation at Infobip. Are you kind of struggling to validate what you do, or is it sort of a given that this needs to be done and you have the budget you need to do it? Or like, what's the situation, and what are your challenges at Infobip right now?
Yeah, listening to Julien and you, I remember there was saying in a TV show, don't play the game, play the man. You actually, when you want to explain something, don't explain localization, talk about what that person cares about, what matters to them the most. And given the number of stakeholders we typically have, our stories do not necessarily resemble each other when we're talking to different stakeholders. I would say that at this point, I'm in a good position because we do understand the value of localization, and we have had already efforts in localization. We see the feedback and the pushes somewhere to do some things better. So I have to admit that at this point, it's easy for me to even find the data and show the data that confirms the direction that we need to go into. But the management responsible for this part is really aware of the problems. They're listening probably to the feedback from the field, and they're getting this information. So that's really good for me and good for the company. But of course, that's one good prerequisite. The job still needs to be done. You have to go out, talk to people, use their language, use the things that matter to them. When I talk to management, you have to use the numbers, the data, and examples from the field, really. Complaints by big potential buyers who require language in order to get in business with us. You need to get these examples, practical examples, not theoretical. It's important. No, this client, we would have lost it if we hadn't had the translation that language. So that's what really I found that it works with the management. with other departments or let's say clients within the company, the recipe is really simple. Just reach out on your own by yourself and listen to their pain points. You don't have to push any agenda. You really just need to take in what they will tell you, because they will tell you a lot. If they work in the field with the people, they will have feedback, both good feedback and of course the bad one. So the material just comes in. And for everyone else in the company that's really not among your primary stakeholders, it's actually just like Hristina said, it's good to be the localization guy, the language guy in the company or person, to be the image of the localization department in your company, because people will have questions, even if it's not related to them. They would like to know about certain stuff. It's good to build this internal, let's say, be the contact point for anything language related. It's a bit more work, but it's actually quite enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's think about,
sorry, before
the process of
yeah, sorry,
go ahead.
Move on to the next one. I just thought of something else as I was listening, but we often, all localization teams often struggle and think that we don't have the visibility, we're not involved at the beginning, we're not considered. And something interesting I observed recently, when you talk to different disciplines, it's actually a bit shocking, because UX writers are like, we need to be involved at the beginning, we need to work with design from the very beginning. And then there was product marketing. Again, we need to be involved at the beginning, product needs to inform us for us to be able to plan the campaign. User researchers, again, talking to product managers, you need to get us at the beginning for us to think about the actual users before you start building the product. And you realize that we think we are like kind of the victims maybe, or the ones that are not understood, but there's so many other disciplines that are involved in building a product that are pretty much in the same situation. And this is where, apart from like data and everything else, is the kind of the getting allies and partnering with some of these maybe, and then you'll be like bigger group, a bigger voice. And that's what I shared like in the local presentation. And what we did, we partnered with the UX writing, the copywriting team, because creating the copy in English, they obviously go for the same goals as us, getting that high quality, efficient content. So that was like really, really helpful. And I've heard of other teams pretty much doing that, like pairing with another discipline. And it could be any discipline within the organization that either be suffering from something similar, or that could be one that can help push your agenda forward. So really partnering with another discipline.
Mm-hmm. Well, think back to sort of your journey to getting where you are now at your company, with sort of the recognition that you have within the company. Were there certain kind of aha moments along the way where you kind of gained a very important insight into how to, sell localization to company internal stakeholders? Were there some sort of breakthrough moments in your own mind where you went, oh, okay, if I put it this way, people respond or people get it, Semir, let's start with you. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I was on mute. Okay. Actually, I was always kind of feeling that this language that you use and examples that you use should be adapted to people. And then I kind of tried it in my everyday operation. But the aha moment was really, for me, not even maybe 2 months or months ago, when I read Natalie Kelly's article about avoiding talking about localization and saying, hey, let's make this work for multiple markets. Instead of saying, hey, let's localize this, just say, let's make this work for multiple markets. It's the aha moment in the sense of, yeah, I've been on the right track, and it can go even further than I expected. And coming from someone like Natalie and from a company like HubSpot, it's really a good signal how things might be tackled.
Yeah. Natalie's blog is just fantastic. Anyone who's not following it yet, I highly recommend Natalie Kelly's Born to Be Global blog. It's just fantastic. Julien, what would you tell us about? Have you had like these aha moments where you kind of had this personal breakthrough of, okay, this is how I can move the needle to getting people to understand why this is so important?
So I wish it was an aha moment. I don't know if I would qualify as this, but again, I think, yeah, like it goes back to a little what I was saying earlier. It's like really understanding, and those happen almost every day, right? It's understanding the people you work with, how to break, like to make them understand what you need or what you want at the stakeholder level. And I think that's really a never-ending learning piece where it's like, because everybody is different and everybody has their own way of understanding things, it's really like understanding how to break through someone every day. I mean, there are obviously some similarities between people, but yeah, this is really like the most important thing to me is trying to communicate with other people and make them understand the need of localization and how localization is important to them and why it is important to them. And to that point, I would say that more often than not, I mean, not more often than not, because then it's not going to seem well, but very often, when you talk with people in product or people in marketing or anything like that, the best way to make them understand why localization is important, it should be important to them, is to show them what would happen if you had no localization or if you had bad localization, and the negative impact that it would have on their product or their deliverable, and how bad it would look to the people they're trying to reach out with, like our users, customer, whichever it is. Like making understand, like if you have bad translation, if you have no translation, no localization, no culture, like this is what would happen. This is the potentially negative impact that you're doing for you and for the company. And I think that like the scare tactics kind of a little bit, but not that hard, but that tends to work quite a bit.
Yeah. Hristina, what would you add to that? Is there something that you found to be particularly effective that you kind of discovered along the way? This some sort of way to explain it, or particular tactics that work well with specific stakeholders in your company?
Yeah, a bit similar to what Julien just said around, not explaining what will happen if you don't do it right or what's the impact of that. But also, I guess it's again normal for smaller teams. For us in our case, now we are kind of a big team now, right? 8 people, but it's just over a year and a half, 2 years ago, we were 3. And for the languages that we do, for the size of the company, it was really intense and not enough time to do everything and do the things right. We didn't have proper processes and tools, so it was really discouraging almost, right? You can't do a great job if you don't have the tools and the processes to enable you to do that. So kind of my usual approach would be, again, any opportunity I would get, I would talk to leadership, mid leadership about the problems that we have, but it was always a bit, almost like a ranting. Oh, this is not working, we don't have these, or these people don't want to work with us. And to a degree it works because the people see you, leadership sees you, but it's perceived a bit of a negative. And once it was during actual interviewing for our team, and there was someone that said, you shouldn't go to managers with problems, you should go with solutions. And it just kind of hit me. It's like, well, yeah, that makes so much sense. Of course, if you complain or rant or present the negative and things that are not working, of course, it's not their job, your management team, to find a solution to what you are presenting. It's like, yeah, it's your job to tell them what's not working and what you think will do better, will work better, and get their support to enable you in that. So it's a bit around that, going to them with solutions or with impacts and things.
Yeah. Don't be a complainer, be a problem solver.
It's hard, right? Like we're always the one person, the 2 people in the company. It's hard not to do that, to go into that.
Well, I want to leave time at the end for some questions, but before we do that, I'd like to ask each one of you, put yourself in the shoes of, this classic case of sort of the one-person localization team at a startup, right? At a tech startup. The localization team consists of this one person. I know it's not rare. And put yourself in their shoes. How would you, in that situation, go about building the profile of localization at your company? Like where would you direct your efforts? I mean, because you're only one person, there's only so much you can do, and you only have so much time in the day and resources, but like what would be your best strategy to try to build the localization of the profile of localization, and make sure that people know who you are and how important your role is at the company? Let's start with you, Hristina.
Yes, I will say something which Julien, you just said earlier was, you know, your part of your role, you said, is to help the company understand the importance of localization. And I think it's the same thing here is, you know, if we localization people are like really efficient and can find solutions to anything you throw at us, we can find ways to localize any type of content. So we're almost doing it to our detriment. And it's like really the fact of, if you don't raise awareness that one person is not enough and that's too much work, and it is like really a big endeavor to enable localization, and you cannot expect one person to do it. So it's really up to you to, of course, do your job, but also as much as possible raise awareness about the effort it takes, the importance of it, of not doing it right, and just getting that support from leadership to grow your team and to bring people in you to help you do that.
Semir, what would you say to that one-person localization team to give them some hope of you know, building up that recognition within the company?
Yeah, I can only agree with what Hristina said. It's bringing up to the point. I would also suggest we have learned somehow to be jack of all trades. I think we all are in that situation. So I would recommend that you really hone the gates as much as you can, but then when you feel the pressure, then look where someone could help you, and maybe even where your weak sides are, and then use these two arguments as a justification for bringing someone else on board. Not just I'm too busy, give me a mini me or a copy of me that should divide the work, but really get someone to enrich your team, because all of us are have certain blends of knowledge that we can combine together. So that would be my take.
Julien, how about you? What would you say to that stressed out one-person localization team?
Yeah, I mean, don't give up. But no, honestly, I think one very important thing if you are that 1% in your startup or any company really, because there are more than just startups that have that type of setup, unfortunately. Really, I would say tooling. Like you may be one person, but you should be able to find some engineering, that whether it's in your team or not, like people that you know, and to help you with tooling, in implementing like tooling in your process, and automate as much as you can. Like this is going to be what will save you down the road in terms of like sanity, health, like because it takes a toll. But we now have great tools. Like the localization industry has just evolved so much in the last decade, but just even the last 5 years, the progress in technology it's been great. And yeah, just try to use tools, and try to at least, if you cannot get someone else, try to get buy-in on tooling and automation for your processes, and that will be a great help. That's what I would say.
Fantastic. Well, I think we have some time for questions, and I'm just looking through the questions here in the Q&A. Some are more relevant to our topic than others, and I'll be honest, I haven't had a chance to look through all of them, but I see one that's quite relevant. So from Luis Herrera, he asks, do you think explaining localization in terms of UX makes it easier to understand the value that localization has? What would you say? We'll go back to you, Julien.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, and it's very important. And we tend to do this today at Roblox. Again, as we are like we see ourselves more of a social platform, user experience, and like touch and feel of the app is really important. But yeah, and I think it does a great way in communicating the need and the value of localization, and also pinpointing some of the issues that we can get when trying to localize content. So yeah, like I think that's a great method of really selling what you have, or what you want to do in software at least.
And you can even like pass that, almost back that to the UX team designers and researchers, and kind of use it against them, because they're all about user experience. And what I like saying is, do you if you think about users and all users, do you mean all English speaking users or all your international users? And kind of using that against them in a way. It's like, if we do care about all users, then we should care about our international users and have that in mind.
Semir, would you add something to that?
Yeah, this metaphor or this comparison with UX is a great one, and it would work with someone who is aware of UX problems and its importance. If you, but not all people are responding to the UX as such, or customer experience. So, like I said, it's a good vehicle to ring this bell to people who are not maybe into localization but are into UX, like designers, developers, front-end developers, that kind of stuff. So it's again one of the ways to approach different type of stakeholders, to ring a bell for them.
A couple of people have asked, I'm just paraphrasing, but like, what are some metrics, some types of data that you can collect that are helpful in demonstrating, the value of localization and how important it is to the global growth of the company? Semir, why don't you start?
Here, I mean, we all agree that localization is necessary, but there is a distinction that no one has so far mentioned. It does depend whether your product is for end customers, consumers, or it's for businesses. I mean, of course, language has to be there, but it's not the same importance. This really reinforces the statement by Underwear Project by NIMG. It's actually we work with business to business. So for us, we can talk to our end customers because there's not too many of them. I mean, there are in thousands, but it's not millions because it's businesses. We did users there, so we can get feedback from there. Does the language, if we do not have their language, does it prevent their users, their companies, to get most out of our platform? We do surveys, for example, in our portal with the current translation, how people are happy with it, and we even offered, okay, for those of you not happy, which is the most problematic point for you? And for example, I can tell you, this is like they're most complaining at most for finding occasional English sentences within the localized version. Somewhere they found it, and they have actually given these results to us as a service. So we can work with this type of data. Not everything should be perfectly translated. That's theoretical, but coming up with data, how the existing users are reacting. Are we losing deals because of lack of some language? That also happened once. So that's the kind of thing that you need to rely on. That's actually the answer you are aiming for.
Julien, what kinds of data do you kind of use to make a case for the processes that you want to implement at Roblox?
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of like localization and whether it's adding a new locale or seeing like where should we go next at Roblox, I mean, we look for different data, different metrics. The key one I would say is really like, what is your user base in the country? Really, and it's again, I think like, what is the current users that we have and what is the potential amount of users that we can have if we were to go into that market, and really understanding, really is just making what is the ROI of going there and how to prove that. I think it's just, at the end of the day, that's really what it is how can we serve the most people possible, and which territories actually want us to go there as well. I think it's really important. Goes back to knowing your audience. Is your audience ready for your product? Do they really have a demand for your product? And are you able to service it as well? I think it's just what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm. Hristina, what have you kind of been collecting in the way of metrics or data that basically demonstrate, if not ROI, at least the value of even if it's more intangible, not so much in monetary terms, but the importance of what you're doing through localization at Skyscanner.
Yeah, I'll quickly touch on that. We have access to data around what percentage of our users come from non-English speaking countries, what percentage of our revenue. So we have over 60% of our revenue is from non-English speaking markets, 70% of our users are from non-English speaking markets. So, those are the usual things. But one thing I want to add a bit in addition to what was said is, we talk about the why we should do localization and how to prove it, but also there's an aspect of how to do localization and all the aspects on the technological aspect, on the processes, on the tooling, and that kind of enables also the localization strategy. So there is also that aspect of how do we get a buy-in to invest in tooling, to invest in processes, to support adoption, and that's all around the enablement. So easily there are things around, how long does it take to do certain things for the localization team? How long would it take with a new tool? And also enablement for other teams, because, we all say as well that our stakeholders, their main job is not localization, right? Developers should be building the product. So how long does it take them to request content, to integrate the content? So looking at those kind of metrics, and, we've done that, for example, instead of looking at your regular turnaround time, we're looking at end-to-end turnaround time. And by enabling our tooling, now we've reduced the end-to-end turnaround time for our developers by 35%, how long it takes them to get the string. So, there are so many aspects. So looking at the how and the tooling and the processes is also a good type of data to use for investment.
Mm-hmm. To what extent does localization get involved in the conversation that happens sort of at the C-level around, what's the next step for like Skyscanner in your case? Where do we want to expand into next? Do you get consulted? Is that something where you are asked to contribute to the conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. We were recently looking at that of which languages should we launch next, and it was actually an equal conversation between our team, where we're looking at the cost, the turnaround time, the processes that would take, the marketing and SEO team, in terms of, obviously they're the ones that have the data around users and sessions and potential markets, between our commercial teams in terms of commercial agreements that we have in each country. So it's a very complete kind of a team that looks at that from different angles. So we are part of that team that drives this decision and makes a decision.
Julien, how about you? Is the localization team involved in those kinds of higher level decisions, the more strategic kind of business decisions around international growth?
Yes, definitely. As I mentioned earlier, like now my team is also like working with our business unit into like the discussion of like what country should we work, like should we look into going, as well as what type of partnership in given countries should we do as well. Like we definitely, like we are a main part of the discussion there. But again, I would say that this, to be quite honest, it's another topic, but it's becoming a more and more complex subject on how to be in a new territory right now. Just there's so many local laws that are emerging that make it really, really hard. And it's very interesting, actually, a really interesting topic into how to be compliant globally. But we're definitely involved in the topic.
Yeah. Semir, last word to you. To what extent are you involved in higher level kind of conversations around the strategic direction that Infobip wants to take in terms of global growth?
Since we're short on time, we are taken into account, and we do participate in this kind of decisions. Actually, we are right now in the middle of such a round of analysis of the markets. We have a specific business model that means that we are mostly already in a country with some operator partners already operating there. We feel that also have the sense pulse of the market already there before we actually decide to localize there. We are not selling anything, but we are there in the market already. So we have this feedback from the field, and that's really working well for us. That's it. I'm going to cut it short because we're out of time, and Brian is anxious to
Yeah, no, I think we're at time. Well, this was a great conversation. Thank you, all three of you, for being available, making yourselves available. Julien being on the Pacific coast, had to get up extra early, maybe.
It was on at 7:30.
So I get up at 4 in the morning Toronto time. So beat that.
Thank you, Kathrin. Smartcat.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I really, really appreciate it. That was a fantastic panel. So thank you. Kathrin, thank you for a wonderful job as moderator. That was great.
My pleasure.
Respected time too. So thank you very much.